everyone, welcome to the 100th episode of Let's Chat Reality. I'm Michael,
And I'm Molly.
and we're at 100 episodes, Molly. I don't know how we got here. 100 episodes, crazy. How do you feel about that?
It's crazy. I know we've been doing this now for almost 2 years, which has been so much fun and talking about all the reality TV stuff and just more to come.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we are so excited. We are here today to talk about the challenge All Stars 5 premiere. And who better to come on and talk about that with us than I would say the foremost challenge expert himself, the host of the Free Agents podcast and also the Diary Room podcast, Matt Liguori. Matt, how are you?
I'm great. I can't take that title, absolutely, just because I am like a late to the game challenge viewer and podcaster. So I know there's people above me on that list, but I appreciate the sentiment nonetheless. And I didn't realize this was episode 100 for you guys. So congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Thank
And
you.
now I feel even more special for being asked here for this.
I can't think of anyone better to come on for a 100th
Well,
episode,
I
honestly.
appreciate that. Happy
As
to
the
help
host
make
of
this happen.
Yes, host of two of my favorite podcasts, and you know I'm not just saying that.
I know. I
I,
appreciate that.
yeah, no, can't think of anyone better to come on for this, Matt. But as you kind of said, you're a little bit of a latecomer on the challenge. But what is your history with reality TV? We always like to kind of get this from our guests on here. Kind of, what was your origin story with reality TV and the challenge and everything else that you watch?
With the whole thing, everything from the
Yeah, just
beginning.
kind of
Yeah.
start at the top.
Yeah, I watched Survivor first, not from day one of the show, but it was one of those, I was a young kid watching on the couch with my mom, and we'd watch Survivor every week. And then as I grew up and I continued to like the genre, and maybe I wasn't, always wanting to hang out with my mom, even though I still love my mom very much. But you sometimes just watch the show on your own or whatever the case is. So that's kind of where I went, and then eventually discovered RHAP, discovered Big Brother at the same time, essentially. Obsession began there. Went back and rewatched all the seasons or watched all the seasons I hadn't seen, and then somewhere along the way, I don't even know if it was because of necessarily Brian and Allie, who I had met before I even knew what the challenge was. Somewhere along the way, I realized I should check out the challenge. I did around like season 28, 29. Jumped in, and of course, never looked back. Besides to go back and rewatch, but just kind of slowly adding shows and networks and stuff to my repertoire.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, kind of focusing in on the challenge for a bit, what would you say is kind of the current state of the challenge as a whole? Do you feel like the show's in a good place right now? A little bit of a worrisome place at all? What are your kind of thoughts on where we are right now?
It's so hard to say like exactly because I feel like one of the biggest narratives that is going on with the challenge is the ratings are going down. Is what I see online a lot, and it's hard to say if that is like a challenge specific problem or I think everybody that has a close eye on television knows that the television television networks and cable television in general, ratings go down as streaming services continue to be the monster that they are. So I don't know if that's a huge indicator, but the fact that like I feel like we never actually hear from these reality shows as big as The Challenge, Survivor, Big Brother, that there's any like, especially at least in the US version of the show, BB Can kind of separate,
Yeah.
that there's ever actually like real concern from the networks about these shows shutting down because they're so easy to produce, they're so cheap to produce compared to any other television show that they might make, the scripted shows that they have to pay actors so much money. So in general, I feel like from the production standpoint, they're doing okay, and from a viewer standpoint, of course, you really have to maintain your core audience. And I think that all three of these shows that I keep mentioning are doing okay with that.
Yeah.
There's been times in recent challenge seasons, like 39, I guess, for example, that, maybe that slips away from people caring a lot because it's like, who are these people? But for the super fans, I think a lot of us were like, oh no, this is a good season because we need a lot of these newbies to, go on a long time and all that kind of stuff. So overall, I feel like we're okay, but I do feel like in general, there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's interesting to me that like they moved All Stars to MTV this season. Like, I can't
Right.
tell whether that's like a good sign for like the challenge as a whole that they really like trust the franchise and they want to expand that onto the main network where the flagship show is, or whether that's more of a negative sign for Paramount Plus that they're just kind of like not too invested in that anymore. So, yeah, I just can't tell kind of what that indicates necessarily, but I do feel like, I mean, look, the seasons go for 21 episodes
Hmm.
now at this point. So it's like I feel like we would start seeing that number decrease if they really started to feel worried about it. Would be my guess.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
well, kind of let's tie up some loose ends a bit with season 40 there. We covered the finale last time we covered the challenge, Molly, but we haven't gotten to the reunions yet. What was your kind of overall thought on the reunion? I know you just watched both of them pretty recently. What were your overall thoughts on how they kind of tied up the season?
I feel like overall, I was satisfied enough. Like, I feel like they covered everything that really had a big part in this season. So it was nice to hear them just kind of rehash things and kind of smooth things over for some people and kind of move on and let things be from season 40 and like forget about it kind of stuff. So I hope that we would see that in the future, like people kind of continuing to be, act like that, of not having so much of the drama keep it in as forefront in their minds, but we'll have to see. And I feel like overall this season was good. Like I enjoyed seeing all of the eras together and having at the end era 1 and era 4 together as women. Like I like that storyline as well of seeing that together. So I think overall it was a success.
Yeah. Now, Matt, Molly is a very new viewer to the challenge, just
Okay.
so you know. So she, I think USA One was your first
Yeah.
season of the challenge. Yeah. Okay. So
Well, that
then,
speaks
yeah,
well to the challenge again. How are they doing? To still find
yeah,
new viewers is
Yeah.
not a bad thing.
yeah.
Yeah, 'cause
No.
I think a lot of it had to do with, like, I like the Survivor people and the Big Brother people
Of
who were
course.
coming in, and
Mhm.
so that kinda drew me on to watching the challenge because I wanted to continue to watch them, and where else
Mhm.
was I gonna see them if they weren't anywhere else? So that was
Yeah. And I did mean to mention earlier that I really do miss USA. I think
I do
that
too.
that was such a good way for kind of like I feel like what I would want the challenge to be like the flagship version in terms of really focusing on Big Brother and Survivor people. I just feel like that is such a natural next step after the Real World and Road Rules ended for kind of a feeder shows to come into the show. And now they just kind of, well, in the late 30s at least, they were just picking like random people from other countries' shows that were on 10 years ago. It seems like
Yeah,
that.
it is such a shame that the Challenge USA did not exist like back in like the day,
I
for both Big
know.
Brother and Survivor. Just imagine like some of the legends, whether you want to say like a Boston Rob or a Parvati or a Janelle or a Brittany or just like any of these names, Mr. Spectacular, like it's some silly characters along the way that would have been on so many seasons of the show
Yeah.
if they were eligible to compete like that. And of course, the Challenge has had so many legends that have competed so many times and they've become such big characters. And Survivor, Big Brother, of course, have had their own as well. A Janelle plays 4 times, a Boston Rob shows up 7. But it's a different format that they're allowed to kind of feel out in a challenge house. And I'm always going to wish that that was the case, but I agree with you that I wish there was more USA.
Yeah, and I mean, look at how much earlier we could have gotten Michelle Fitzgerald, Matt.
I'm saying, yeah. I mean, I think we like she's landed in a really good spot for
Yeah,
where she is right now. So like she's probably content with the way that everything went down
yeah.
or has gone down so far. But yeah, I mean, never would say no to more Michelle.
Matt, do you feel like season 40 lived up to the hype overall of what you would have hoped a season 40 would be before we knew what it ended up being?
Generally, yes. It's really, really, really hard for me to look back and see a couple of the casting choices not be exactly who you think that they should be because you want it to be like this. It is this monumental season, but especially Amanda at the reunion highlighting certain people that should have been there, and
Yeah.
you look at a cast like All Stars 5, and Davon's here and Frank's here, and all of these like big names that it would have been great to have. Casey, not Casey. Well, I was going to say Casey being on Era 4 when you have like Big T and Melissa who would have made such good
Mhm.
TV on
Yeah.
in a spot like that. So even Nani not being there, I'm like, she is a key member of Era 3. Like it would have been great to have like the exact picks. But the show films when it films, and either people say yes at that moment in time or they don't. Veronica not being in there, with Era 1. So that kind of holds it back from being like a perfect season for me. And then like the final where, the winner didn't actually win on one of the winners' sides of things.
Yeah.
There's like things that I can definitely nitpick, but like I don't know, out of 10, I'd probably give it like a 6.5, which is not terrible.
Yeah, that's not too bad. I know, I agree with that. I feel like there's always going to be like I feel there's just never going to get the perfect 40 people to pick for this. Like
Yeah.
just yeah, like with schedules and just people kind of needing to take breaks at certain times, you're just never going to get everybody, but I feel like overall I'm glad that they did kind of make it a celebration of the show as a whole because who knows if
Yeah.
they're going to get a season 50. So I think
Yeah.
you have to kind of do these anniversary seasons, make them as big as you can when you got them.
For sure. Yeah.
Now, do you feel like, Matt, that there was anyone whose challenge career was particularly helped by season 40, and is there anyone who you feel like their challenge career was hurt by season 40 particularly?
Hmm. Good question. Helped by season 40 has to be like some of those people like the Averys and Nayas who maybe otherwise weren't getting on the main show anytime soon,
Hmm.
to get back in there and get in the mix. Like Naya being involved in a Ladies of Leisure alliance with two of like the current faces of the show, Michelle and Olivia. Like being involved in that certainly helps your chances
Yeah.
at being called back. So people like that. I mean, obviously a Jenny West who goes on to be the winner of the season. Otherwise was kind of being like left out of a lot of different casting pools, but now she's back in, and now she won. And it's like, how do you, Scally and I keep talking about how do you ignore her at this point? How do you just like
Right.
pretend like she's not there? She's a two-time champion and won your biggest season of the show ever. So people like that definitely, helped by it, hurt by it. I mean, Tony, that's kind of by his own hand.
Yeah.
But someone like a Tony, um, some of the era one people, it's hard to say that like it really hurts them doing as poorly as it did, but a lot of them, whether you want to give Jordan, not credit, but whether you want to agree with what Jordan said or not about how they're waiting by the phone for their call, it probably didn't help that they were all out so early and did so poorly.
Yeah, I think the only other ones that I can really think of are maybe like Nerys and Horacio, just because of the
Yeah.
whole like
Yeah.
calling out production
Yeah.
in terms of certain challenges being unfair. I feel like Nerys after season 39 was just like everyone thought like going to be the next face of the challenge, and now it seems like she might not even be getting a call for 41 if you believe her word for it. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's
That's kind of the only other
insane.
one I can think of, but.
Yeah. I think that's a
Um,
good pick,
M
unfortunately.
Molly, were there any kind of just standouts to you overall through the season, that you may not have been familiar with or who you were familiar with before the season, who you hope to see more of in the future?
Yeah, because I didn't know Rachel at all, but I really liked
Mm,
watching her in this season, and overall, I feel like she was just a strong competitor throughout the season, so I liked watching her, and then, obviously, I loved Michelle, so it was really happy to see when she made it to the finals and then did as well as she did, even though those karma points did hurt her in the end, but overall, like, I was happy to see Michelle.
well, speaking of the karma points, I wanna get into that because this was allegedly filmed during the reunion. A whole segment about the karma points, they allegedly watched the footage of, them figuring out who gave who, what numbers, and then this was all cut from the reunion. Do you have any idea, Matt, why they might have cut that?
Not a clue. And it's genuinely frustrating because the
Yeah.
whole season was every couple episodes we check in with who's voting where, and then you are waiting for that one thing. I mean, you hear that Laurel gave Bananas a one,
Right.
and Bananas might have something to say about it, but the fact that they possibly talked about it and then we didn't see it, absolutely no idea. I don't know if it's like to cover up storylines that they're planning in future seasons. Like if
Oh,
41, maybe there's going to be people on there that they're going to want to work together, but it makes no sense. I mean, for example, you go with Tori and Kara in 39 hating each other and they have to give them the
yeah.
story arc this season of the redemption of their friendship because now they're friends again. But I don't know if like Bananas and Laurel are both going to be on 41, and they're going to be friends and maybe they don't want to give that story there because they want to talk about a million other things. I don't know. I'm just like trying to come up with something because it is confusing.
Yeah, no, I mean, the only other thing I think was, like, maybe that discussion kind of evolved into like criticizing production for doing the karma points twist
Sure.
in general, and maybe that they just kind of didn't want to do and they couldn't figure out a way to edit
Yeah.
that part out of it. I don't know, that's really the only thing I can think of, but other than that, yeah, that seems like that would have been like the biggest drama of the reunion between Laurel and Bananas in particular, so that is really frustrating that we didn't
Yeah.
get that. But anyways, moving into All Stars 5 here a bit. Now, let's kind of go back to the beginning of All Stars 5 when it first started filming. We hear that there's potentially going to be not necessarily only Real World Road Rules cast members on this season, and which was very controversial when it first came out. Then we see the cast as a whole. Matt, what were your impressions of the cast when you saw it and who they ended up picking, and seeing that it wasn't, not only was it not all real road rules, but like some people that weren't introduced to us till like season 37?
Yeah, it was confusing. Trying to figure out exactly what they were going for, kind of coming to terms with the fact that it seems like, okay, all stars doesn't mean all stars anymore. It just means anybody that's available for a short cycle and fits their theme. It's interesting because Devon was talking about in her one of her YouTube vlogs this past week how she was talking to a producer and they were like, well, would you do all stars even if you keep saying no to us doing the main show? And she's like, I don't fit in on all stars. I'm not, I'm CBS. You never have CBS people on all stars. And somebody was like, oh, well, we had Cam and she's not from, real world road rules.
Yeah.
They're like, well, maybe we can find something to make it work. She gets a call a week later. Well, we made it work. So whether like they did all of this just to get her here and then said, let's open the floodgates and get in a big T Melissa who weren't able to do 40 for one reason or another. This is what we have now. And again, as the news was coming out about who's there, it was confusing. But as the season is here in front of me, I'm not that upset about it. I feel like All Star 6, if and when it happens, is going to be really telling of like, okay, if this is still the case, it's like we have Challenge A and Challenge B, and it's not All Stars regular. It's just two different versions of the same show. And I don't know. I mean, this cast is promising, so I'm not that upset about what we have in front of us.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I wonder if like maybe that is something to do with the fact that USA isn't around anymore, that maybe someone like Davon they were looking at for a future USA season,
Mm,
and then that didn't exist anymore. So they were like,
mhm.
maybe let's just kind of move some of those people into All Stars. And it also has a shorter filming schedule. Like maybe some of the people who wouldn't do the main version, we can kind of get on there and figure out a way to make that make sense. So
Yeah, I mean, you did not have Frank Sweeney showing up until now. So if it takes 1 month or 1.5 month
yeah.
filming cycle to get Frank back, then you do that.
Yeah, for sure. Now Molly, we find out that it is a rivals theme. We see the pairs. Does this type of theme that is very dependent on knowing kind of their past histories, these past rivalries, backstories, does it make it more difficult for you as kind of a newer viewer to get invested in the season? Or does it, do you feel like they did a good enough job here in explaining these feuds that you were still invested?
Yeah, I feel like the show did a good job at explaining them, and overall, I feel like also I've heard, like, from people or listening to the podcast, like, talking about how some of these rivals aren't really rivals, it's more just like, "Okay, we're gonna pair these 2 together." So, I think overall, the challenge fan base still is also like, "Why are these rivals?" But, so that made me feel better of being like, "Okay, at least I didn't know this either." Um but overall, I think it made sense in general. Like, I mean, I think it's a good theme, even though for some of it doesn't work for everyone. But it's still I'm still able to get invested in it enough of being like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like I can hear their basic backstory and understand why.
Yeah. Matt, we haven't seen Rivals in a long time. I think the last time you technically saw it was on Final Reckoning.
Yeah.
Do you think that in the 40s era of the challenge, I guess this is two questions, but do you think they should make a comeback on themes like this? And do you think they will make a comeback?
Yeah, I mean they've been, they kind of did it a little bit with introducing ride or dies. So it's
Yeah.
like obviously it's not rivals, but it's still pairings of people that are ride or dies for each other. So it's obviously the kind of thing that they can't do too often, too consecutively, because how do you have that many rivalries forming in between, rivals one and or rivals two and rivals three? Like there's
Hmm.
like they really shorten the time window there. But yeah, I mean, something along these lines, whether it's rivals, whether it's exes, whether it's ride or dies, like any kind of themes that tie in people's stories together is what, for me at least, when I went back to see all of the 20s of the challenge that I wasn't there the first time on, that's what made it so compelling to me because you would see people form this rivalry, a Laurel and a Cara, back when it wasn't as weird as it is now.
Yeah.
Well, it was, but maybe it wasn't as bad as it is now. I
Maybe
don't
not as
know.
toxic. Yeah.
Yeah. So you see them together, and it's like, well, I know that they're about to be paired up as a rival in future seasons. So it's very interesting to see their story, begin there, and you know where it's going to go. And again, whether it's the ride or dies or the X's, I think that it definitely helps. Just doing like a spies, lies, and allies, where it's like, well, nothing is going on here except for people playing a challenge and
Mhm.
uh, a spy theme. It's like, well, I'm a little less invested. I'm not upset about it, but there is definitely something to having a hook.
Yeah, and I feel like for a while they really tried to move into this challenge being a sport thing and move
Yeah.
away from the drama of it all. And we would hear about all this drama that they were cutting from the episodes and really just like focusing just to focus more on the challenges, even though they have now 90 minutes instead of an hour.
Hmm.
So it gives me a little bit of hope that they're still kind of now maybe moving back into a little bit more of the drama and the interrelationships between the cast and focusing more on that. So I really do hope that they bring that back
Yeah.
because I feel like this theme really helps to kind of make force that to become a possibility and
Yeah. So far, so good.
for sure. Well, the episode begins by introducing us to some of the cast. We catch up on some of the ones we haven't seen in a while. Now, Frank Nani and Ashley Mitchell are the three that we see get actual intro cards. Molly, do you think that this bodes well for their longevity in the game, the fact that they were a focus early on in the episode? Or is that maybe just like a red herring, doesn't matter? Or maybe they're focusing on them because they're out early? Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I would think that that would be good for the longevity just because why are they gonna show us all these packages and then not have them be lasting throughout the season? So, I would think so, but I also since I'm newer to watching the challenge, I don't know if they do this where they kind of fake you out and then they don't not as big, but I feel like it does bode well for them.
Yeah, and those are 3 that I feel like are probably gonna make it pretty far. I mean, well, maybe not Ashley with, Anissa, but,
Yeah, she doesn't seem thrilled so far
yeah.
with the partner selection she's given, but and Frank too. I mean, Frank obviously is got a different thing going for him this season, where he
Yeah.
has the same partner that he had in one of his most prominent seasons, and now he has to find a way to not be a jerk all season long. But it's also as we saw them struggle a little bit in the opening challenge, it could be a problem. So for both a Ashley and a Frank, I think it'll be interesting to see the connections that they have and how well those are able to save them in order to go as far as they want to.
Yeah, for sure. Well, TJ then announces the rivals theme. Now, we don't need to go into each of the partners and, all everything, all their history. If you want that, go listen to the Free Agents podcast. They did a great breakdown of every team. But there was just kind of 3 here that I feel like were the focus of the episode that I want to focus on a little bit here. First, Adam and Steve. Now, this rivalry, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but I feel like this rivalry probably, or this relationship, not the rivalry is pretty new, but the relationship probably goes back the furthest of anyone
Yeah.
in terms of because they were both on the same road rule season back in 2001. Now, that was before my time of watching MTV and this whole universe. Do you happen to know, Matt, were they really close back in the day, back on their season? Or was this kind of like people who were on the same season of Real World and, have a history, but not necessarily particularly close?
Yeah. So when I went back and watched all the challenges, I only watched the challenges and I
Ah,
didn't watch any of the Road Rules or Real World seasons. It's the kind of thing, it's on the list at some point if I can ever
yeah,
get around to it. But no, so I don't know exactly how close or not they were, but when you see them together on All Stars 4, you get the vibe that they haven't talked a lot in the past however many years it's been. I think a lot of these casts, you usually get out of a group of 6 Real Worlders or Road Rulers, maybe 1 or 2 that are like, oh yeah, we check in every year. I catch up, I see how their family is doing. It's rare to see people that are just like best friends still with somebody on their cast from that long ago.
yeah.
And so the vibe that I feel like we got from Adam and Steve was that they maybe haven't checked in a whole lot over the years, but they were fine. They're again on the same cast. And then, of course, the drama that happens on that season leads them to not being as good of friends in modern times. And, again, I don't know what their exact relationship was, but even if it was great then, it's 20 something years later, you're different people.
Right, for sure. Yeah, so for those who don't know, their rivalry started on All Stars 4 towards the end of the season. Steve ends up taking Adam's star, which he needed to get into the final, and then Adam ends up being eliminated right before the final, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, an episode or two or something like that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that started their rivalry. It appears that now All Stars 4 filmed what feels like 45 years ago, but
Yes.
it was, I guess about a year and a half before All Stars 5. And it seems like they have not spoken at all since then. And then we see them here. And it doesn't necessarily appear like they are, at least immediately, making up for the sake of their team, though they do end up winning the first challenge. So I feel like I could see them making it pretty far here. I don't know that their rivalry is going to impact their game if I had to guess.
Yeah.
But
They're just really strong competitors. Steve coming
yeah,
in third place on All Stars, and Adam, had a pretty solid season as well. So I feel like they're going to be a really dangerous duo, which is why you hear like Devin and Leroy being like, "Oh, gotta watch out for them."
yeah,
So yeah, they're going to be fine. I think as far as
yeah.
competition goes.
I think so too. Now, someone who might not be fine, Turbo and Nani. They certainly Turbo is stubborn, if nothing else,
Yeah.
and they were another one who were paired up before on War of the Worlds one during Turbo's first season. Worked super well together during that season. Made it well. Turbo ended up winning once it went individual. Nani was eliminated right before the final, as she often tends to be.
Yep.
And then War of the Worlds 2 comes along very next season. They are on opposite sides of a very divided house that season. Then a few years later, Turbo comes back for the first time for Ride or Dies and is out very early at the hands of Nani, which really started their main rivalry that we see here. Matt, what do you think their chances are of working well together?
It's like Donnie said to him. She's like, "I've helped you before. You helped me. We've gotten each other decently far in the game." That's the thing about these two; they could be deadly. Turbo is such a good competitor. Nani is not a bad competitor, even though she's never gotten a win. She still is a really good partner in a lot of different aspects of the game. So it feels like again they could be great if they can communicate well, and that's obviously
Hmm.
been their number one issue up until this point. Probably even was a little bit the case on their first season together, but maybe just because it was a new friendship and just a new experience for Turbo that it wasn't featured as much is my guess on all of it. But they've just had so many differences. Nani's not the type of person to put up with the type of BS that Turbo is going to put out there. So um, it's really tough to say. I feel like again, competitively, they should be able to do fine, but like I can't see them at this point, just in the state that they're in, like winning a final with the amount of intense communication that you need with your partner in a time like that. Like look at Tori and Devin, maybe not the strongest competitors of the whole field collectively together, but they worked so well together in Ride or Dies, and that's why they won the final. So
Yeah, I mean, I think just the fact that, like, we saw in this episode that Turbo was just sitting on that swing, it seemed like all night long and just waited for people to come to him. Now, Matt, I know firsthand you love a swing. So,
I do love a swing.
can you blame him for just wanting to stay there all night? I
And
don't
he
know.
was talking about the house being too cold. He's like, I can't go in there. I'm like, okay, so he was just cold and he wanted to be on the swing. Like, I don't see anything wrong with this. But everybody else was hanging out inside, so he looked antisocial, and then Nani had to go chase him down. So I was like, look, Turbo's done a lot of things that I'm going to come down on him for. This one, not so much. He's allowed to swing.
Yeah, why not? Well, our last pair that I wanted to kind of focus on here, John A. and Beth. Now, these two, their rivalry started during All Stars 3. Now, I don't remember exactly what the crux of why Beth felt the need to do this, but she came in late that season and she was only there for like 2 episodes. And my memory of it is that she just came in and I guess she was maybe watching All Stars 2 at the time. I don't remember quite the time frame here, but uh, that she just kind of came in and started a rumor that John A was cheating on her husband with MJ. Now, was there something that you remember that John A did that led to Beth doing that? It seemed like that's what the story was here that Beth at least was
Yeah.
trying to say, but I just don't remember what that was.
I can't remember exactly what was going on. And like honestly, I can't even remember if Beth is the one that started that rumor.
Mm,
I feel like it might have been like an online rumor that was reported somewhere. Maybe like John, because the whole thing was that people were saying that John A and MJ were so close, and then Beth, took that to the next level and turned it into that she had an affair and whatnot. But I feel like again, my memory is that maybe there was just like a lot of people saying that John A and MJ had gotten so close, and maybe Beth jumped onto that in the challenge house
mhm.
that she showed up, like you said, very quickly, or for a very short amount of time, and she said, "Oh yeah, John A and MJ, they're a thing," and just took it to the next level, almost acted as if it was a fact and was spreading it all throughout the house to the point where I'm like, maybe the challengers hadn't even heard about this yet. Maybe it was an online rumor before they left for filming. I'm not
Mm,
exactly sure the details of it, but obviously Beth took it, ran with it, made it as horrible as it possibly could have been. And John A, of course, talks about she had to literally go to marriage counseling. Not just I don't know if it's just
yeah.
because of that or what, but that certainly couldn't have helped.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, I know you guys talked about this on the last free agents episode, but like I feel for John A so much in this. Like I just feel like this is one of those pairs where I'm like, ooh, like I know this is like an actual real rivalry, which
Yeah,
we don't always see, but like almost too real. I don't
too
know.
real. Yeah.
But well, we get everybody moving into the house together after they are paired up, and we find out that the teams have to bunk together, which is very interesting. Now, Molly, are you more of a top bunk or bottom bunk, first of all? And would you feel comfortable sharing a bunk bed with your rival, who might be your ex?
Yeah, I don't know if I would like that. If I was the bottom bunk, maybe I would be okay with it, but being the top bunk, I don't think so. Like I am the youngest child, so like with my sister, she would
Mm.
always choose the one first if we had a bunk bed situation. So I didn't really get to choose. So I kind of had to go to the top bunk usually because I feel like that's the least liked one. But I don't know. I feel like overall, like that's gonna cause more drama in the show. So I feel like that's okay. Like they're gonna have bunk beds together because then they can bring up their sleeping drama too.
Well, then they go to the challenge, and Veronica comes, and it's revealed that she is Katie's partner. Do we know why she was late?
No. Um, not at all. She has talked about that she waits until the last second to sign her contracts, and I would not be surprised
Mm,
if that was the case here because she talked about that she was getting ready to go for season 40, and I think she said that she flubbed signing the contract there too. She was supposed to and she just didn't get it done in time or something like that.
no.
But then she probably just had the same thing happen here. I don't think it's anything beyond a travel delay.
Ah, okay. So that, yeah, that's kind of like Jordan on season 30, right? He couldn't
Yeah.
get his passport. Yeah.
Yeah, CT got there late from a passport.
CT, yeah.
Jordan on season 40 as well, coming
Oh,
late
yeah,
because
yeah,
he had a
yeah. Okay, got that
race,
mixed up. Yeah.
there's a bunch of things like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, the challenge this episode is called Frenemies. It's a race with 3 checkpoints, a mud bath, ice transfer, and a ball and skirny, whatever that means. Um, and I feel like nothing too interesting during this challenge necessarily, but the 4 pairs to finish first and get their stars that are needed to get to the final here are Adam and Steve, Devin and Leroy, Ashley Kay and Dario, and then Nani and Turbo. Now, the 2 guy on guy teams are the first 2 to finish here. Molly, do you think that it's fair for to have kind of these mixed gender teams? Some are guy guy, some are girl girl, some are guy girl. Is that fair to have these all mixed in one season here, or should they be even one way or the other?
As a female myself, I feel like it's not totally fair because obviously I want women empowerment, yes, but like the guys, like it obviously isn't even if it's that way in the season of when there are also girl pairings. Like I think there needs to be like maybe like if they have separate maybe such type of checkpoints or something that like could differentiate it somewhat that could make it a little bit more fair, but then it maybe would be like, oh, then they're going to discriminate against us. So I feel like there's not really a win-win here, but overall like maybe they could have just made it all that they were all guy girl pairings, but then that might not have worked for the whole rivals theme. So I don't really know the best case scenario here, but overall I feel like the guy teams are strong, so they're going to keep winning.
Yeah. Matt, what do you think about that? Because again, we saw that on Final Reckoning, which were mixed teams like that, and they ended up having to do in the eliminations that season things to make things allegedly fair and tweak things to for that.
Yeah.
But we might get more real rivals because of that, if they can kind of do whatever. So, what do you think? How is that fairly balanced enough to make it worth it?
It's not. They cast more women on this season, who are all much more compelling characters for the most part than most of the men here. And they, I think, in their minds will justify it and say, well, there's, 6 more women on the cast than there are men. So like, there should be a chance that, the women teams will be just fine because there's more of them. I don't really know how the philosophy behind that works, but when
Mhm.
you see the first challenge of the season have the 2 male teams come out in spots number 1 and 2, it's like that's not promising.
Yeah.
You have to hope that the final, I don't want the all swimming final again, but that they do something where it is equal and where everybody will have a chance, whether it's just more puzzles or something to make it, a little bit less strength based, or whatever it is that they need to do to equalize the field a little bit. But I'm not optimistic, I'll say, with just seeing the results so far.
Yeah. I mean, this is the same production company that won't even give Jordan special gloves. So
Yeah.
I don't know that I trust them to necessarily make things super fair here, but, we'll see. We'll always hope for the best, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know yet what the format is exactly for picking who goes into elimination, but I guess what are our thoughts? What are our hopes for it? It seems like nothing necessarily in terms of like who's last in the elimination, or we probably would have gotten that already, I would think.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they didn't finish the challenge. As soon as they
yeah,
had their top 4 teams,
that's
TJ
true.
called them all in, so it certainly can't be who was last. It's either going to be the top 4 teams, like the 8 people that got a star in total, come together and vote for 2 teams to go in, or they come together and vote for 1 team who then picks another team to go against.
Yeah.
I feel like is the only 2 options. If it's something else, I'll probably be pleasantly surprised because it'll just be something different.
Yeah, that would be fun. But yeah, I think you're probably right. That seems like those are really our only two options here.
Yeah.
Um, Now let's just all kind of make winner predictions here. While we're here on episode one, we haven't seen much yet to go off of. But if you had to say a winner prediction right now, and whether they will steal the money for their partner if given the option, who are you going to pick? Matt, you can go first.
I feel like after the premiere episode here, I can't even remember what I think my official prediction might have been Amber and Fessy beforehand.
Mm,
But I feel like just seeing the dynamics of the teams, seeing how, and like everything that I was just saying about the male teams doing well, I feel like I have to go Devin and Leroy, which I know is crazy to say that Leroy could be a challenge winner. But
yeah.
they're like, I feel like production is doing everything they possibly can to make it a likely outcome. And I feel like there's like all of the top contenders that I see on the board would make somebody a first time winner, whether it's a Nani, a Leroy, a Fessel. So I'm just gonna give it to those two, Devin and Devroy.
Yeah, I
And then
think you
who would
mean
they
the
would steal the
Nani, actually, Matt.
Nani? Yes, exactly. But who would they steal the money? Devin. I know this might sound surprised. No, Devin would. Devin is too much of a TV character. But
Oh, I
like you're
don't
taking
know.
money from a family, from like Leroy and that beautiful family.
Yeah.
Leroy also would for his family. He doesn't give a shit about Devin, and he would happily take the money for him and Cam and the kids. Devin, would Devin do it? Devin might not.
I don't think so, only because he was so pro Sarah in that reunion, if I remember, after Johnny stole the money from her. And I feel like that
Hmm.
would really make him look hypocritical if he were to
It
do
would
it.
like put him on the same level as a bananas, and like he'll take
Yeah.
anything I think to like make him seem like the
Yeah.
better person, the better whatever than bananas. So I don't know if he puts himself on that same level unless he really disliked the person. And again, like you're taking money from Leroy and Cam, like that's crazy.
Oof. Yeah. That's rough. I can't see him doing it. No, I
But I think
really
Leroy
can't.
would.
Ooh. But I feel like that's just so not Leroy's personality either
But
to
he's
do
got 2
that.
kids at home, and
That's
I think he's gonna put
true.
them first. I really do.
And it's only 300K. Like, I feel like if
Yeah.
it was a million and he was gonna get half a million regardless, he might not do it, but the difference between 150K versus 300, that's maybe enough to.
Yeah, I think if he can get his first win and also be like considered the solo champ, I think he
Mm,
100% does it. It's no disrespect to Devin, even though he would be taking money from him, but
yeah.
I think it's his only option.
Yeah. And Devin would probably like actually in reality being on that end of it where he's totally the victim.
Yeah,
Like he's still
he
getting
wouldn't
the
mind.
publicity from it, but he's the Sarah in that situation.
Hmm.
And I think he might even like that better.
Yeah, especially
But
because he was there when Sarah got Sarah the first
right.
time. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Molly, what do you think? Who's gonna win here?
I also was gonna pick Devin Leroy, but I'll choose someone else just so we get another team here. I'm gonna go. I'll just say because I feel like what you're saying with Bessie maybe being a winner here. I feel like Bessie and Amber could surprise us. Overall, I think the season. Also, I love the Big Brother people, of course. So I think that's why I'm like I'll choose them.
Mhm.
But I think in general, like they have a shot, and I feel like they would split the money between them.
I'm trying to
Maybe.
think if I think they would. I think Fessy. Oh, I don't know.
I
Fessy
think
split the
Fessy
money?
takes the money from
I
Amber.
think so too.
Oh.
Amber, does Amber take the money from Fessy? Again, she's also, family back at home, but I think I think she like
Yeah,
feels deep down that she's a good person, and like, when you feel you're a good person, you're going to split the money. So I think she would split it. I don't know that Fessy would.
I agree with that, I think.
But also, again, she's a new mom. Like, you're going to take that money from a new
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah,
Maybe they would have a conversation and, like, be able to agree, but I don't know.
Yeah. And,
I
and like
don't know.
Fessy's also someone who's like maybe in a spot where he's worried about getting the callbacks. Every season he didn't get a
Mm,
spot on 40, so maybe he like needs to make his mark in such a big way to be able to
yeah,
ensure that going forward, and that would do that.
that's very true. Yeah, that's very true. Now who do I think? I've said that I think Frank and Sam. I just because of Frank, I think that he's such a beast that I really have thought that even with Sam as a partner, that they have a shot to win. I think after really watching that challenge again, and I I don't know if Sam has it in her, so I am gonna. Ugh. Maybe I'll go Adam and Steve just after their dominant performance. I don't know.
Yeah, they're going to need to be stopped. If anybody can find a way to stop them, then great. But if not, the way that they performed in this one, they could perform like that all season long, stay in power, and absolutely could do well in a final together. So
Yeah, and I think that they would both steal it from each other.
that would be probably correct.
Unless they make up during the season and have a nice story there. I
Yeah.
think that they would as of if they were given the option right now,
Yeah.
100%.
I will say none of us picked Ashley K and Dario, but I feel like they're a sleeper pick in all of this.
That's true. It. I mean, spoiler alert. It seems like they might be together right now.
I don't know what's going on there.
I think didn't Ashley just posted a picture that really
There's
made
like
it.
a like leaving it to the mystery.
Yeah. So
I'm
yeah,
not sure.
that makes me think that maybe they're in this for the long haul, just because
Yeah.
that seems like a story that's going to play out for a while. So that'll be interesting to watch for.
Okay.
But all right, well, let's kind of make some quick season 41 predictions here. What format do you expect to see for season 41, Matt? And I guess maybe if it's different, what would you hope to see for season 41?
Honestly, I think they're gonna do what I hope, and that's just some sort of fresh meat season.
Yeah,
I feel like that's like even before 40 was airing, I was like, it needs to be that they need to. They've just done 39, which was growing people they've gotten in recent seasons, and that's great. 40 is this big celebration, but for 41 going into the 40s, I need to meet some new people. I need
yeah,
to, have. Like even if that does involve and Olivia or Michelle being like the lead of their team with a rookie by their side, I get it, they're brand new. But I'd still like to see new people show up, and maybe we find one or two new mainstays that will be in the mix, because that's the only way the franchise keeps growing. And given the names that we've seen so far, it does seem to be, at least a couple of returning players, and you need that in a fresh meat season. So I kind of feel like that's what they're going to do.
yeah. I think so too. I feel like that just makes the most sense. Like that season 40 was the end of this era or multiple eras, and now we're kind of starting anew. And we haven't seen new faces since season 38, like you said.
Yeah.
So
Like
I
a
think
Turbo and
that
Nani doesn't happen without a season like this that they might do
exactly,
now. So
Yeah, I
exactly.
hope that happens because I like when there's new faces coming in because then that can continue to grow the show. And I feel like for me being a newcomer and watching it, then I won't be losing out on all the past drama that
right.
I have to hear about from the show. And
Right.
there's flashbacks that like more of it can start up now.
Yeah, those are the best seasons to come in on. I feel like when there's a bunch of new faces and like you said, like not a ton of past drama brought back up and it starts, like I feel like War of the Worlds was such a resurgence, like such a new era that there wasn't a lot from before that has continued since then. So
Yeah.
I feel like yeah, that's probably the most likely. And I just hope that when they cast these newbies, I hope they're not just like random people from like some random one season Australian show that we've never seen before. Like, I just hope that it's more Big Brother, Survivor, Love Island, whatever it is. I just hope it's faces that we already are familiar with and excited to see because that's how this show was started was picking these people who you kind of got to know on the real world or road rules. You were invested in them, and then you got to see their story continue on the challenge. And so I hope that
Yeah.
that's kind of they go back to that a little bit.
I'm a little torn on that because as I look around the board here of like people that are on All Stars 5, Corey Lay is from 12 Dates of Christmas.
I
Big T is
watched that,
from,
okay?
was it good?
The season 1 that Corey was on was, and then season 2 was not.
Okay, well, it's not a show you think of that they're going to cast from. Turbo being on Survivor Turkey, it's like just a show that, or a country's show that we wouldn't think to ever look at, but
Yeah,
they obviously have scouts looking all over the board, and Turbo has become such a big name. Big T comes from Shipwrecked. I don't know what the hell Shipwrecked is. I'm
yeah.
never going to watch it, but if I didn't know Big T on the challenge, I'd be upset. I do definitely wish that or hope that they go mostly into shows that we know as long as they get the right picks from them. I mean, I heard, the rumors of like Riley from Big Brother 25.
I
I'm
did
like
see that,
cautious about it. I'm like, what are we doing there? But I'll
yeah.
give it a chance. Um, so I don't know, a little bit of a mix. I'd kind of like maybe like 60 to 70% of names that we might already recognize because we know them from a different show. But still sprinkle in a couple of those people so that I can have a new, the next big T kind of thing.
Yeah, no, and that's true. And like, we look at Vendetta as like that was such an amazing rookie class, and that
Yeah.
was a lot of UKs that,
Yeah.
were people we weren't familiar with. So no, that is true. I think that there's a place for both. I feel like as long as there's enough rookies that, you're excited to see that you already are aware of
Yeah.
going in, then I think that does it. That's fine. And, it's always nice to meet some new people as well.
Yeah.
So, are there on that note, kind of, are there any big returns from vets that you were hoping to see on a season 41?
Mostly the people that are on All Stars 5.
Mm,
Like I just look around the board, whether it's an Ashley, a Davon, a Big T who I don't know, just wasn't on 40. Like there's just like a lot of people here that like I would like to see Frank there, of course. Um, so just like some of those names, I'm like,
yeah.
just keep coming back. Don't just come back for All Stars and then disappear when we have the possibility of seeing you on the 3 month season. But
Yeah. I
yeah,
really I hope that Ashley Mitchell comes back as a recurring player again here. I hope that this is
yeah,
kind of the end of her. I mean, I don't know. I don't know exactly what she said to get her banned from the show for a while. I know there's rumors about it, so maybe
yeah.
if I actually knew that, I wouldn't be saying that. But I do miss her. This really made me realize, I think, this premiere, how much I actually missed her on the show.
And I feel like a lot of people are not going to be satisfied until we get the Ashley and Amanda duo back
Yeah,
together.
that's kind of how I was feeling too.
So kind of need that to happen at some point.
Yeah.
And so even though that's not an exact return at this point, still would like to see Amanda on 41.
Yeah. I mean, what a shame that she chose 40 where she had no friends, basically, versus
Yeah.
All Stars 5 where her entire Lavender Ladies
It
clique
was
was
like
there.
right when departure happened. She was like, shit, I should have gone. We're like, yeah,
Yeah.
get on the plane.
Yeah, did they not tell her they were doing it?
They didn't tell her specifics, I think, and I think she
Mhm.
also said that Ashley lied to her. I don't know if she said lied to her
Why?
or just like maybe wasn't exactly supposed to go, and then all of a sudden she was going, and it was too late for Amanda to change her mind back.
Ugh, what
Something
a
like that.
shame. But yeah,
Yeah,
hopefully 41, 42, 43, somewhere in there, we'll get, as many as possible back
yeah.
together again. All right. Well, leaving the challenge universe for a bit, let's just talk a little bit of traders here and some other random shows. Just a few little points while we have you. Can't not talk about that. Such a good episode this last week. Who do you think is playing the best trader game right now of the three, and who do you think is playing the best faithful game?
It's still Carolyn playing the best trader game just because the other two are so messy. Actually, no, 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 no. I have to give it to Rob at this point. Because Carolyn is still the person that I think could go the farthest. But the fact that Rob has survived 2 weeks in a row now, when otherwise he should not have, I'm really getting the sense that he's putting in a lot of good work on people all across that mansion. So I do think he's playing somehow the best game, but he's still not in the best position.
Yeah.
And best faithful game, it probably just has to be Dylan Efron, which is annoying because he is not consistently making decisions that I want him to be making.
Hmm.
But just the fact that his social game is so good that everybody wants to work with him, I don't think the traders are killing him. And I think you have all the faithful, like the Britneys, trying to pull him in for a vote. So
Yeah.
probably those two.
Yeah. Molly, how would you answer that?
Yeah, I also am surprised Rob has been able to survive these past 2 weeks, but I still want to give it to Carolyn as the best trader because I love Carolyn. And I think that because no one is suspecting her at this point,
Mhm.
that means she's doing a great job because of that reason. Like, you obviously want to go hidden throughout as long as you can. And only person who brought her name up was another trader who people aren't believing that. So at
Right.
least that's a good sign for her. Um, and yeah, I think I'd have to go with Dylan also for best faithful.
Yeah. Now, Matt, this is a question that I think only you can answer. Which Wes exit do you think was more iconic? His last Traders one or House of Villains?
You know the answer to
I think
that.
I do know the answer to
You know
that.
the answer to that. Watching that man get on his knees to beg for money that he otherwise claims he wouldn't need, it was just wild. I mean, it was a, memorable exit here as well. I'm truly never going to forget him going out by being this cocky man that he always is, and telling them, F off or F you all or whatever he said with the middle finger in the air, but
Mhm.
getting on his knees to beg Jesse, Mr. Spectacular, who is by all accounts not been on our reality TV screens for a while Wes has. I'm the most winningest. Okay, well, you didn't win there. So
Yeah. I never thought that Wes would be quoting Cornbread from Big Brother over the top during his
yeah.
exit. That I just it was something that I never thought I would see, but
And him
I
getting
agree.
got by all of the Big Brother people just in general, consistently is
Yeah.
beautiful. He just complains about Big Brother players left and right. And then he gets got by Jesse. He gets got by kind of Brittany, alongside all of the people Brittany's working with to get Wes out because they don't like the way he's treating them in the house. So
Yeah.
they're stuck in his side.
Yeah. Now, Matt, I know that you recently finished your Big Brother rewatch of every season.
I did.
Was there anything that stuck out to you upon rewatching all these shows that you hadn't maybe noticed before when you originally watched them, or anything that kind of you noticed that you hadn't?
Um, Interesting way to think about it because what I really was doing was taking notes for the
Mhm.
podcast. So I was trying to pick up on things. I guess like what I didn't notice is just little bits and pieces in people's games that you don't otherwise think about. For an example, like I'm watching unfortunate example here, but like a BB-15.
Oof. Yeah.
And I know. And I'm watching, Helen's game particularly closely because I'm like, I do feel like she's a good player. So I'm like, what are they really showing us about Helen along the way? And as I'm taking notes, I'm writing down everything that I see that Helen is doing that's good. And I'm like, I never would have noticed this the first time around
Yeah.
because I know she's gonna not win the game. I'm probably paying more attention to Andy or bigger characters that are just more like dominant on the screen.
Mhm.
But I'm like, there is like a lot of good stuff, and whether it's a Helen or any other player like that in other seasons, that you just don't really pick up on because when you're watching it on a binge, you're usually just watching for the end game characters.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, that's
appreciating more of
interesting.
them. Yeah.
Now I know you're also watching Housewives. Is there what? Where are you right now on that? Are your any favorite franchise that you've watched so far? Any favorites that Housewives that stick out?
It's funny to tie the two in together to see Candy on her original show for
Oh
as many seasons
yeah,
as she's been on. Because I met her on Big Brother Celebrity, so
right.
that's fun. But yeah, I think I have like 2 seasons left of Atlanta, which I'll probably finish by like next week or so.
Hmm.
At the speed that I fly through them with faster speeds and stuff. But yeah, I finished the entire OG New York. I haven't started the newer version of it yet. I've now finished Atlanta, or I'm almost finished with Atlanta. I have to catch up on this season of Salt Lake City, but
Oh,
that
so
group has
good.
been very fun and very messy. So I'm just like really enjoying knowing about all of them, even if like I'm flying through at maybe faster speeds than most people should watch it. But like now I know who all of them are, and when there's like crazy news, I'm like, oh, I actually know this person. So
Yeah, and just in time maybe for some of them to come on next season of Traders. Maybe
exactly,
be more familiar with the ones
exactly.
that they pick.
So that works out too.
Yeah. All right. Well, just now to close things out, just a little short game here. I want to play a most likely to with your two co-hosts, Brian Scally and Amon
Oh
Adwin.
gosh. I'm
Just a few questions here.
gonna get in
So
trouble.
that's what we're hoping for. Um, which one would you say most likely to go on an unrelated tangent?
Unrelated tangent. I'm on. Easy. I feel like he just did this recently. What were I can't remember exactly what it was, but no, Scally is usually like pretty on topic, and I'm on like
Yeah.
if he thinks of something, he'll just jump right into it. So definitely I'm on.
Now I think I know the answer to this one, but most likely to give a controversial opinion.
also Amon.
Mon,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, watch any episode of of Amon podcasting in
Yeah.
general, not just on the Diary Room. And he's got whatever take is on his mind. He's going to let you know, even if it's not the popular one.
Yeah. Most likely to have tech issues while recording a podcast.
That's funny. I think I 3 for 3 on Amon. He's
Mon,
been having
yeah.
tech issues lately. He's
Yeah,
trying
he's
to
been
fix some of
pausing.
the ports in his computer. And Scally's if Scally has any tech issues, it's usually fixed with a quick restart. So
Mhm.
again, Amon.
Most likely to be late or have to reschedule a recording.
Now you're really getting messy. They've both had times with that. So, but I don't know, nothing too major.
Yeah,
Most likely
that's
to is probably Amon again.
good. 4 for 4. Well, we'll see if it's a 5 for 5 sweep here. Most likely to get blocked by a cast member for something they said on the podcast.
And now Scally finally gets his
Golly,
turn.
yeah.
I think most of his blocks have come from tweets, though. Usually he's got some good tweets he's firing off, and if it's
Mm.
about a certain player, whether it's a Josh or whoever, and it gets back to them, that's
Oh
but
yeah,
all
he is blocked by Josh, isn't he? Or there's somebody
he
that he
is
loves that he's blocked by.
he
Yeah.
is blocked by Josh, yeah,
Okay.
and that has
You
not.
couldn't fix that for him when he was on the diary room,
I
Matt?
wasn't able to.
Oh, damn.
We were talking about it. I was like, do I mention it at some point? And it didn't happen. But so I guess yeah, we'll give Scally his first answer.
Yeah. All right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. This was so much fun. Anything to plug? Where can we find you on social media? What do you got?
Yeah, and those two podcasts really are the main place I'm at these days. The Diary Room with Amon, trying to find the best Big Brother player of all time, and the Free Agents podcast with Brian Scally, where we are just talking the challenge, the traders, all topics that we've covered here today. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys so much for having me, especially for episode 100. Congratulations again,
Thank you.
and yeah, can't wait to see what you guys have going on this season. It's going to be a fun All Stars 5.
Yes, it should definitely be. Well, thank you so much for listening. We will be back next week to cover whatever we decide to cover next week. Probably the Challenge All Stars, Traders. I know Love is Blind is coming back pretty soon here. So we have a bunch coming up. And you can find us at Let's Chat Reality on all social, not all social media, I guess, but on Instagram, TikTok, if that still exists by the time this comes out. And you can follow me at MichaelHorn23 and Molly. What is
Molly
your handle
Ross.
again? Molly Russ underscore or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right. Well, take care, you guys, and we will catch you next week. Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much